Hi, my name is Alta Franco, and my ethnography is on a book called How Jews Became White Folks and What That Says About Race in America by Karen Brodkin. She is a professor of anthropology at UCLA, and I initially chose this book because this is a topic that my family's discussed a lot. My great-grandparents and grandparents immigrated to the United States from Vilna, Russia, which is now Lithuania, and they originally immigrated to Germany and then quickly changed courses. And then part of my family went to Israel, and part of my family came to the United States. And so I've grown up hearing these fascinating stories of just sort of the immigrant experience in the United States, and especially, or more specifically, the Jewish immigrant experience in the United States. And so I was interested in reading this book. Karen Brodkin she analyzes, a lot of this book is an analysis of her own family's multi-generational Jewish experience in America. About halfway through the book, I was a little concerned that this wasn't turning out to be an ethnography like the ethnographies that we've read so far in the class. It was really heavily sort of a memoir. There's a lot of past stories that are incorporated, present stories that are incorporated. There's also data and research, and there are a couple interviews. I know that ethnographies can be done in various ways, but this really felt a lot more like a personal account. And she started out her book really focused on the Jewish experience in the United States, and the last half of the book seemed to focus more on the non-white experience in the United States. And so I felt like she probably could have combined those two parts a little better, but it was still very interesting. She really seemed to focus a lot on the American institutionalized system of occupational and residential segregation, and she wrote a lot about gender, class, and religion, and how those things affect your work opportunities and education opportunities. And obviously she focused a lot on the changes Jews experienced in regards to social identities and like whiteness, white status versus non-white status. She told a story about the restrictive employment opportunities her grandparents faced in the 1920s. And then she goes on to really discuss the differences between ethno-racial assignment versus ethno-racial identity. And I wanted to share one quote, so I thought it was really relevant to American Jews today. She writes, "We look at our histories not as models to emulate, but for insights, new ideas, and conversations. For American Jews, this requires confronting our present white racial assignment. The Yiddishkeites of memory were forged under conditions in which Jews were considered less than fully white. Those ghettoized conditions forced Jews to depend on one another. The privileges of whiteness, especially occupational and residential mobility, which are extended to American Jews after World War II, dissolved that forced interdependence. If external racism contains the class, religious, and political differences that have always marked Jewish communities, what will preserve those aspects of the culture today?" So she's really talking about sort of a dilemma that American Jews face today, having like this opportunity of a whole new assignment, ethno-racial assignment. We are not, we're not forced to be Jews in the United States. We don't live in these shtetls. We are not, we're not admitted to colleges because we're Jews. We can blend in and we can be white if we choose to. And so she goes on to discuss the responsibilities that comes with from going from a minority and a person of color to achieving this white status. What does that mean? And she talks about how we as Jews need to remember that it's not only, it wasn't our like ethnic talent or supremacy or like merit that got us to this middle class and also white status. It was changes in government policies. And she points out the importance and the need for American Jews to recognize and avoid sort of a racist attitude that comes with the change that ethno-racial assignment gives new white people, I guess. She has a lot of data and a lot of research that she shares in the book. One piece that I thought was also interesting was the FHA believed in racial segregation. Throughout its history, it publicly and actively promoted restrictive covenants. Before the war, those forbade sales to Jews and Catholics as well as to African Americans. Even after the Supreme Court outlawed restrictive covenants in 1948, the FHA continued to encourage builders to write them in against African Americans. FHA underwriting manual openly insisted on racially homogeneous neighborhoods, and their loans were made only in white neighborhoods. I wanted to add to that this tied into my own family's personal experience in California. There are a few neighborhoods in the Bay Area that you could not buy a home in those neighborhoods if you were Jewish. And so, and now ironically, those neighborhoods are predominantly Jewish. So, this book was really interesting. I felt like it probably could have flowed a lot better. It goes from telling her own personal experiences and observations on the Jewish experience in the United States to in regards to social identities as being whiteness to focusing more on class, gender, and race and what that means in America today. So I found this book very interesting. At times I was a little worried that it was too much of a memoir and not enough of an ethnography. But I hope you all have a better idea what to expect if you choose to read this book. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a good finals week.